Yeah. Welcome back. Thank you very much for your time. Ibad is not happy with the tag controversial. Salam alaikum, Ibad.
Yeah, and Paul, good to see you. And you've put on some extra pounds.
Oh, have I?
Yeah, you have.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Good to see you.
I'll do well to reduce then.
Maybe you should hit the gym. I'm also told I should hit the gym.
Salam alaikum, Ibad.
Yeah, wa alaikum. Good to see you.
How is the fasting?
Everything is superb, but we are wrapping up. By next week, we would celebrate the Eid.
I see.
Yes.
I see. I saw your post on Facebook when the fasting started, asking people not to make their face mobile.
Oh, I see. You saw it. It means you are quite active on social media.
Oh, I am very.
You know, you are quite deep and spiritual, I suppose.
Yeah.
Every now and then, God Almighty instructs mankind to shun the things that are mundane and we enjoy. So in the case of Islam, we don't have wet fast, it's always dry. So it gives you a sense of the suffering of the poor as they feel the pangs of hunger. How many times have you hit an intersection and seen young people, little kids, run to you for a city or two to buy food? So the very wealthiest, like the king of Saudi Arabia, would also be going through this process. So you get to sympathize and empathize with the poor. It also teaches you discipline, because as you are even married, during the hours of the fast, you can't have intimacy in the sense
during the hours or during the whole period?
During the hours of the fast.
Hours of the fast, from 6 to 6?
Yes.
But sex is usually
4:30 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Sex is usually had from 10 p.m., so it doesn't.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Well, I would assume that
you
I would assume that sex is hard when people go to bed in the night. So
so the Holy Quran says.
So you will be fine if you are married, because you are staying with your wife.
Close to your wife after 6 p.m. when you have broken the fast. So it's spiritually fulfilling. It teaches you discipline, and it has got its own health, benefits. Yeah,
I see.
Yes.
What is your background as a security expert? What is the basis?
Paul, I remember maybe 5 years ago or 4, I had come on the 7 o'clock or 7:30 program in the other studio.
Yeah, here in Metro.
Yes, you were just going to take over around 9 p.m. to do your show.
Yeah.
So we exchanged pleasantries. Yes. So it means I've been doing this for over half a decade. I'm 32 and I look a bit infantile. You can imagine over half a decade ago. And so I was actually doing my first degree in public relations when the City Breakfast Show, I had met Bernard Avle. I did a little analysis on some issue. Then later he said he wanted some perspective to the Arab Spring. So when he was going to put me on, he sent me an email. Then I said, okay, Irbad Ibrahim, while in uni, I have been serving as this and that, and I'm a researcher. So he said, no, give me a little more information, Ghanaians. So when I started sitting on the breakfast show, Bernard, aptly addressed me as a researcher. So later, when TV3 started engaging me on News at 10, there was an analysis I did on Syria, and I think Bernard, Bright Nana Amfo, who is a very good friend. So I was featuring quite often on News at 10. I think the death of the analysis might have swept him off his feet. So he said, okay, researcher in Middle Eastern Africa, or even an expert, because you're an expert in what you do. You don't need a PhD in communications to be called an expert. Jesus Christ was an expert in theology. But you need long
practice. If you don't need an academic background, you do need long practice, substantial practice.
I think 5 years for me is substantial for a young man, even though I wouldn't be up in arms with people if they deprived me of the description and experts. Sometimes it's too weighty for you to call someone an
5 years may not admittedly be enough.
And frankly,
if it was at the bar, 5 years will not be enough.
Yes, of
practice
course,
of a lawyer to be an expert.
Paul, it has never been my intent to go jostling for titular appellations. Far from that. I'm not interested in that. So I was still doing my first degree. And then not only Ghana, I've been engaged in East Africa, other countries, and of course the
on
US,
matters of security.
On matters of security. And then the US government also offered to take me to Washington, D.C. for a short training.
And you've done that?
Yeah, I did that in Washington, D.C.
On security?
In conflict resolution. In DC. So in fact, I spoke with the embassy before I came for this program. And then again, in the lead up to the election, because I didn't really understand the pulse of my political friends, I did an analysis on Gitmo 2.
Yeah.
And some people thought it was a game changer. It would chip away at the electoral fortunes of a certain political party that I'm good friends with today. And of course, one of the leading members of the party who was speaking for the president, the then candidate, came out and said, "Oh, who is Irubad? You only finished school in 2012. Where are the books he has written? Why call him an expert?" Largely because of the Gitmo. And I'm happy to say, when the man became minister, he invited me in a private, meeting and apologized. He said ever since, yeah, he did.
But now you are thought to be MPP.
Oh.
I mean, today when I put up a post on social media, many people who were from the NDC were very livid, brutally angry.
Paul, I'm sure you've grown to have the Teflon to parry off some of these trivial, partisan attacks. Of course, I do analysis. My analysis in 2016 could have cost Nanado the election because I had a high-placed information that he had been informed on the Gitmo 2 issue. So at that time, I was seen as an adversary to the MPP, and I was seen also as a confidant to the NDC that was in power. And of course, during that time, I did a little work with...
But have you now become MPP?
No, I work with the state. Matters
so
of
are you hoping that
security,
President Akufo-Addo will be re-elected?
Matters of security and stability. No partisan coloration. So I want to see peace in Chiriponi, for example. I am doing my peace activism. So if the state wants to partner me, so be it.
Do you want to see somewhere along re-elected as president for a second
I've always said the biggest challenge we've had, Paul, in this country is that we truncate the tenures of presidents when they have grand schemes, grand plans to take Ghana to the promised land. And of course, when I supported former President Dramani Mahama on Gitmo 2, it was born out of my belief in continuity of the national agenda to take Ghana.
But now you think Akufo-Addo, because he has grand plans, should be allowed a second term?
And I've made no secret of that intent, that I would want to see His Excellency get re-elected in 2020.
Coming after you. This morning,
they can only go after themselves.
Your people put up a post about this program. Was it from you?
Yeah, it was from one of my boys.
He did? Okay.
Yes, he resigned. It was a busy day for me. I was attending a couple of meetings.
I started getting a lot of calls about whether Ibad was coming on the show.
No, Paul, I think you've come up.
I just want to read to you how I responded to this. So, in one of them, I wrote and responded, "Dear Madam, our post for the show will be up at 4 p.m. because this was earlier when your post came out.
Okay.
Ibad is on for 15 minutes. Our main guest is someone else. We will talk to Ibad about the political situation in Afghanistan and its relationship with elections occurring at this time of the year. There will be no denigration of our former EC. We all hold her in high esteem.
Yeah.
Thanks, and hope that you tune in."
Yeah, we do.
Somehow people think that your post was abusive of Charlotte Osei.
I think I know or I've heard that your program has a wide audience. But I came out this evening, despite a long day of fasting, to address Madame Charlotte Osei and also her family. There comes a time. Yeah.
Let me just explain why. I'll come to you on that in a bit. But the reason why we are talking to Ibad is that, as you know, the widely publicized happy appointment of Madame Charlotte Osei as Electoral Commissioner for the Afghanistan election has been published on Facebook. The president of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has himself taken opportunity to congratulate Charlotte. Here is what he put up on Twitter, I think. We'll put up the post in a minute. Okay, so this is what it is. And it says, "On behalf of the people of Ghana, let me congratulate you on your appointment as the International Elections Commissioner on Afghanistan. wishing you all the best, and I know you will make Ghana proud. That's from Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo on his Twitter page, and it's accompanied by a photograph taken, I believe, in 2016 when he handed over his election documents to Madam Charlotte Osei as a referee for that auspicious election. So that's the president's congratulatory message, and many Ghanaians have congratulated her as well. Some have, however, taken a swipe at MPP people and the government for having egg on their faces because they, as they say, manipulated to remove her, and now she has been recognized internationally. But that's all beside the point. Ibad here also put up a post.
Paul.
What did you say in that post?
And Paul, there comes a time in everybody's career where you have to take a watershed decision. And taking such a decision could be difficult for your family. Sometimes you cobble together your family. This is what I'm going to do. In my career, as someone who worked in diplomatic circles, I worked for Middle Eastern interests. And of course, dealing with the Israeli-Palestinian issue was always a delicate issue. So sometimes you would want to take a bold step and take a decision. Afghanistan is not a cool place to work in. And of course, when you look at all the statistics and recent reports coming from Afghanistan, the Taliban feels emboldened. As we speak today, there is a 2-day peace, negotiation exercise in Moscow. But the Taliban is calling the shots. And in the past 24 hours or so,
who are contesting this election?
Ashraf Ghani, who took over from Hamid Karzai, and many other, people that are seen as progressive and conservative ones as well. And you see, when you serve in Afghanistan, there is an employee, an American employee at the U.S. Embassy. Look, this guy served in Afghanistan. And Paul, when you're even talking to him, when he hears the footsteps of somebody coming, because of post-traumatic disorder, he behaves in an eerie way. So that is what it means working in a war zone. Look, Dr. Ibn Chambers was appointed. He's rep for the UN Secretary General. Where? In West Africa. It's not a restive region of the world. So to have a young lady whom I hold in high esteem, and she did marvelously well in 2016 to have handed us one of the most peaceful elections we've seen since 1992. Take her to the center of a war zone.
Let's look at the statistics that Ibad sent us in preparation for this program. Can you put up also that he can sort of discuss the analysis? There'll be a photo coming up on the screen shortly. Then he's going to explain that to us. Okay, so this, for instance, what is this, Ibad?
These are the casualty figures. No, the polling center, the statistics on the elections in Afghanistan. And of course, because the Taliban is so strong, and there is, voter intimidation, and there are bombardments in various...
So what do you have? At a glance on the left, 18...
you should be 18.
Okay, you should be 18 to vote. So that's the number of registered voters over there.
Yes.
So that's what, 89 yes. or 891,000 or 8 million?
Yes.
It's 8 million. Yes, 8 million 900. Okay. Yes. Then the next figure we see is
the turnout in 2018 was 35.1%.
Turnout?
Yes.
Oh, that's low.
In the last election.
That's very low.
So Charlotte Osei is going to superintend over the election in 2019. And mind you, this is not a permanent UN job. This is not like the Ibn Chambers thing where you are going to serve continuously.
Yeah, that's about 6 months.
Yeah, it's an election, and this is an election in a turbulent country. And again, nowhere is safe in Afghanistan. So the only plea we are making is that as a family, Charlotte Osei and her relatives can look into the decision or the offer.
No, I think she's already arrived there. We actually have a photograph of her in Afghanistan. Let's look at another one. Let's put up another one and see another of the photos so that we can...
Yeah, so turnout 35.1%.
What does this represent?
It's terrible. And these are the casualty types. Some die as a result of bombardment, suicide bombing. And again, when you ram a booby-trapped truck into a UN compound. It doesn't distinguish between who an observer is or who an American Marine is, for example.
So these colors in the pie chart mean
some die as a result of gunshots. Some
so the blue is what? Gunshot, dark blue is what? Yellow is what? Red is what?
More than 1,000 people that were killed in the past, within a period of 6 months. This is a piece of statistic from last year. So some die as a result of suicide attacks, and there are assassinations in Afghanistan as well. So the picture I want to...
But the United Nations is also there.
Yeah, the UN is there. But of course, if just anybody was deployed there, we wouldn't have bothered whose ox was God. But this is a person, I believe, if things are anything to go by the way we understand the politics in this country, may come back, do a detour, and come back as Ghana's electoral commissioner. So her life is very important to me as a concerned Ghanaian. And if she had been asked to do this for the European Union, I wouldn't have had cause to raise concerns. Afghanistan is turbulent, and Taliban is attacking every single installation, whether it is fortified or not. And we don't have experience with war, Paul.
Yeah.
Even artillery gunfire can leave
but you will imagine that the United Nations
disorder.
that is conducting the election will be very firm and strong.
Not even Donald Trump. When Donald Trump even travels to the region, it is kept secret. That tells you how dangerous it is to be in Afghanistan. So I'm out tonight not to denigrate, just as you indicated, or vilify her for taking up a job. How does it concern me if someone continues to remain jobless? So you would congratulate her on one hand, because she's going to make Ghana proud. But then, if this were in Guinea, in Kenya, we would have understood. But this is in one of the most dangerous countries in the world.
But the UN must appoint someone to go and do the job, and it means that they have trust in her.
When for example, if Metro TV should open a bureau abroad, and they say, okay, Paul, go and be the bureau chief in Abuja. It's not like saying, go and be the bureau chief in Baghdad. Your family would have cause to complain about the fact that Iraq is not a safe country. So that is just a red flag I'm raising.
Yeah.
That it's cool that she performed resplendently in the 2016 election. And this is not a dyed-in-the-wood person that has to do with elections observations. She was boss of NCCE before the former president gave her that opportunity. No experience with a theater of warfare. She hasn't covered war before. She hasn't been in a restive region. So for me, I think this was too much on a plate for her. And I felt we could have, politely declined such an offer. Where I'm calling on the president to intervene is that she's not a public official currently. So the state can't dictate to her what international job to take and what international job she can't take. And sometimes some of these are lobbied for. In her case, I can't tell whether it was an offer from the UN, because UN jobs are jobs that are put out in the open. If there is an opening, you apply, you are vetted, you are screened, and you are given the job. In her case, I don't know what happened, whether she was handpicked or her team had to apply for this job. So the state cannot dictate to you where to take an appointment anywhere in the world. But what the state can do is, this lady is not an ordinary lady. Ghana's former electoral commissioner, and potentially in future, since she didn't resign, she was sacked, she could have a shot at it in future. So anybody who goes to Afghanistan comes out with post-traumatic disorder.
Already arrived in Afghanistan and you're shot there, sitting quite comfortably. It doesn't look like it's a war zone. It doesn't look panicky. It looks quite comfortable.
Oh, when you go into a war theater, we have boys that are serving in northern Mali with MINUSMA, with all the fanfare and pageantry. I'm not a doomsday prophet. Please get me right, Paul.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there will be, suicide bombing where she's going to stay. But I'm saying it's dangerous to be in Afghanistan.
I'm sure that consideration has been taken. I'm sure the United Nations, with all their military power, will prepare for it.
What military power does the UN have? It relies on the...
Is there not a UN force domiciled in Afghanistan?
It relies on the capabilities of the United States.
Yes.
And not even Donald Trump announces his visit to Afghanistan. That is how dangerous the place is.
Yeah, but Afghan terrorists will be more interested by 2,000% in Donald Trump than in Charlotte Osei.
when an explosive detonates, it doesn't differentiate between who an American is and who a Ghanaian is.
What is this election about? Is it a presidential election? Is it a parliamentary election?
It's a presidential.
Is the Taliban contesting?
The Taliban doesn't contest in not at all in an election like this. The Taliban believes democracy is a Western culture, and therefore they wouldn't want to sit around that table. And so they intimidate people from taking part in the election. And they say, just as they did with the Soviet army, the Soviet Red Army, they think after 17 or 18 years, they will continue fighting until the US and the rest of NATO withdraw from Afghanistan. So this is a long war. So to have a fine lady
so the
being put directly into the mess gives me a cause for concern. Because when you observe an election, you don't do so only in a strong room.
You have to go out.
You have to go out. So whether her lieutenants go out or she goes out personally. And again, high-profile people have been killed as a result of attacks. And then you don't know who to trust. The Taliban has infiltrated the government. So therefore, for a very fine lady like this, if I was consulted, maybe I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have been consulted. She could have taken an easier job and a more perilous one than going to Afghanistan.
I think we'll leave it here, Ibad. Thank you very much for your advice. Salam alaikum again.
Okay, and thank you so much for having me.
Allah be with you and
Okay,
bless you through the rest of the